That's quite a big tone. Right, hello. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to live Q&A. I can already see that a few of you know the drill around here. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Already I'm seeing good morning from Detroit, from McNasty. Steve Burrows says Eastbourne calling. Basically, for anyone who doesn't know, I really like when you chime in with where you're from around the world. Make it as comedic as you like, in fact, because I don't really care. I just want to know where you guys are from. And I find it very interesting because it seems that live videos are doing well and we're starting to reach the corners of the earth, which is great. So hello to everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you all had a good week. I can't actually believe it's Wednesday again already. It seems to have gone very, very quickly since last week. So quickly I don't even remember what I did last week, but it will come to me. Anyway, this is a new week, so a new theme for today. As you can probably tell from that opening little clip, I want to play around with the idea of T-style guitars and getting some big, big tones, because it's not always the case that people go to a Telecaster or a Tele-style guitar as their primary instrument for sonic destruction. You know, you'd normally think of getting a bigger tone from a humbucker, but I actually want to make the case for just using some really, really simple gear to get some big tones. So I'm going to show you just a couple of guitars today, a couple of bits of cool gear on the floor as well. The amp, which somebody actually asked quite early on, Malcolm Johnny, to answer your question, you might be slightly surprised by this. Let me just play the tone one more time, and then I'm going to tell you what the amp is. And you may or may not be surprised by what I tell you it is. So here's the tone. That amplifier rates at 8 watts, and I can tell you it's the loudest amp I've had on one of these live Q&As, bar maybe the Soldano. It's a Maz 8, Dr. Z Maz 8, and it's ridiculous. I mean, I love the Maz amps. We use them all the time in all sorts of our videos. I think I used a Maz 18 maybe once before, but I like to try and mix things up a little bit in these live Q&As with some stuff that you might not usually hear. But the Maz 8 came a call in when I was looking for an amp this afternoon. It works an absolute treat. Now, I am boosting it with something on the floor, which I'm going to come on to in a minute, but just the raw tone of the amp, even without that pedal, here's what that sounds like. That sounds amazing as well. I've actually got the amp facing away from me and facing away from the camera, so I can turn it up in the room a bit more and get it sounding good. So there we are, that's the amp straight out of the way. I'm going to talk about the pedals in a little bit. I've got some more greetings, which is great. Let's see what we got. Adam Cave Project, hi from California. Krenar Silku, which I apologise, sir. I say your name every live Q&A and I've probably pronounced it differently every time. Let me know when I land on the correct pronunciation for your name. Albanian in Austria. It's a pretty cool combination. Hello to you. Malcolm Johnny from Malaysia. That's cool. Rob Brady from Wales. The Fonz147 from Canada. This is excellent. And Jill Griffiths, I see, is watching, presumably from Maidstone, Kent. So hello to you all. Right, let me dive in. So as I usually do with these, I want to treat this not only to show you some cool gear, but to answer your questions as well. So if you've got any questions that you want to ask me about gear predominantly, but you know, throw anything into the ring really, this is the place to do it. So I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. But in the meantime, I'm also just going to keep showing you and talking through a few thoughts on some cool gear. So while you're formulating your questions, let me talk about this a little bit. So this was a part of the shipment that came in, I think it was yesterday morning. Yeah, it was yesterday. Another Sir shipment, which we're very lucky to receive. And we've had some really, really nice pieces from them in recent weeks. This is no exception. So what this is a classic T, and I was berated, not so much online, but certainly in store by my colleagues after yesterday's video for the pronunciation of I'm doubting myself again, Polonia, something like that, for the bodywood, which I believe, at least from Mr. Nigel Spennuin from Sir himself, his comments on yesterday's YouTube unboxing video, he said this is basically very similar to a Swamp Ash body. So it's incredibly lightweight, it's a little brighter, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to show this to you today, is that a lot of T-style guitars that we see from Sir, usually Sir have a way of voicing their guitars which is a little bit sort of meaner, a little bit meatier sounding, a bit more mid-range, not quite as bright as a Fender Telecaster would be, or various other variants. They have their own voice, which I really like. But this guitar, I think, with it being a little bit lighter, actually has a bit more of that top-end spank that a lot of people look to get out of Telecaster. So it was interesting, and plugging these things in today and filming some listing videos, I was kind of proven correct in my theory that these guitars have a little bit more zing to them. You can even tell acoustically. Which you may or may not be able to hear over the fan, but there's a bit more zing to these guitars. So if that's your thing, if you've been looking for a brighter sounding T-style guitar from Sir, this is finally that option. But of course, being a Sir is easily one of the most playable necks that I've ever felt. Quite a thin neck actually. I guess it's kind of in keeping with their regular classic T-line, but it actually feels maybe a hair thinner than other guitars I've played. Roasted maple, fully satin as well, which is quite important. I think that maybe that takes away that millimetric distance that I was talking about, maybe feeling a little bit thinner is because it's satin. Big old stainless steel frets, which also help with the zing factor. It's just excellent, and I put this guitar in drop D for the listing video, which you'll see shortly on the YouTube channel. It just seems to suit it quite well. So let me play a little bit more for you, and I'll kind of get across what I'm talking about with this guitar, of how versatile it is. It not only sounds great and feels great, but it delivers on a lot of different musical styles. So here we go. It does a lot of those standard things that you expect a T-style guitar to do. It can get quite spanky. But what I like about the Sir stuff is it never becomes too intrusive and too abrasive. So, you know, it doesn't really get in the way of your playing like some T-style guitars can do. It just complements it, but it can still go everywhere that a regular Tele can go. Especially with a bit of gain on the neck pickup too. You know, that's often overlooked on a T-style guitar. Let's see what that sounds like with a little bit of distortion. I like everything about this rig today. The guitar is no small part of that, but I've got some good sounds happening today. Probably because it is the loudest amp I've used so far, that's probably all it is. Anyway, so that's a little bit on this guitar. There's a few different finishes that are available. There's this Trans Shell Pink, which I can't decide whether this or the Trans Grey is my favourite. They're both excellent colours, and there's also a Trans Butterscotch finish, which I remarked in the unboxing video that, considering that I think these guitars are most probably a poly finish, I'm not 100% on that, but the fact that there's a considerable amount of sort of wood grain showing through is really nice, which you don't normally see on a poly finished guitar because it normally just kind of covers the whole thing up. But actually, you can see, you probably won't be able to see it on this particular video, but you can check out the listing pictures that will be on the website soon. It's just a great looking guitar, great feeling guitar. I mean, the feel is number one on these things that I adore. And the tone is great. So it's very hard to consider other options. However, I will present another option a little later in this video. But before then, I'm going to hurry things along and I want to answer a few of your questions. So let me catch up here. I've had a few more greetings from all over the place. What have we got? From Spain, from Australia, from Nepal, Australia once again, Argentina, America. Goodness me, this is excellent. Thanks guys for chiming in with that. Thanks for humouring me with that ridiculous little request. I've just seen one come out from Italy as well. Excellent. Right, a couple of questions in here. Let's see what we got. Krenar says, are you using a very light and subtle chorus? No, but there is something on the floor that is adding a little bit of wobbliness, which I'll talk about in a second. I'll come back to your question now. All right. Okay, let's see. Kathleen, Kirsty, perhaps. Hey Jack, which S-style guitar with single coils would you recommend for about €2,000? Thank you. It's a good question. That's kind of an interesting price point, really, because you kind of in a little bit of a grey area there, because you've got a very healthy budget for stuff like Fender's American original guitars, which I would highly recommend. If you want something a little bit more contemporary feeling, then you've got Fender's American Ultra series, which is a bit more modern. Slimmer neck, noiseless pickups and stuff like that. I don't think €2,000 will quite get you into the custom shops and the Suhrs and the exotics and guitars like that. But if you've got €2,000 to spend, you can go for the very, very top tier of what Fender have to offer, and I don't think you'll be disappointed in the slightest. If you want something that's more traditional, then you've got the American Original series, which either last week or the week before I was raving about the Telecasters, how good those guitars are, how I think they're probably the best USA production line Fender guitar that you can get right now. And equally, if you want something that's more modern, you've got the Ultra series as well. So I really, for that kind of money, at €2,000, I personally don't see a reason to look away from Fender. If you're going to spend a little bit more, then you've got more options on the table in the custom and kind of USA boutique market. I know there'll be tons of other brands around that price point that will make great instruments, but in all honesty, a Fender at that price point is about as good as it gets. So that's my recommendation. Original if you want something more original. Ultra if you want something more contemporary. Okay. Modern Vintage. Hi from America. Any more heavy relic Dale Wilson guitars coming soon? I would imagine so. I don't know the scheduling, but it seems that every few weeks or so I come into the shop and either John is ready in the warehouse to do an unboxing of Dale Wilson signature guitar, Masterbuilt guitars, or he says to me, you're doing an unboxing on some Dale Wilson Masterbuilt guitars. So it happens quite frequently. So I think the last shipment was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, so maybe within the next couple of weeks we might see a couple more, who knows. Okay. Michaela Ariza. Now this is a little bit of a vague question, but I'm going to do my best to give you an answer anyway. Which guitar would you recommend for a beginner electric guitar player? That's a really hard question. I always think, listen to the players that you like the sounds of the most, identify what kind of guitar it is that they play, and then buy the very best of that style of guitar that you can afford. The term beginner guitar, I think, is maybe a little bit unfair because there's a lot of amazing instruments at lower price points nowadays. But to some people, that's not what they mean by a beginner guitar. Some people want to spend £1,000 on their first guitar, so it's quite hard to quantify. But that's my advice anyway. Listen, the players that you like the most, identify the type of guitar they use, and buy the very best one that you can afford. If you're into Les Paul players, you can get some amazing Epiphone original series guitars, or if you can afford it, you can buy some entry-level Gibson pieces. If you're into Strat players, Fender Vintera is going to be a great option for that. Same with Telecaster players. So figure out what kind of sound of guitar you like just from the players that you like to listen to, and it's easier than you think. Just listen to the guys or the girls, whatever kind of guitar player that you like the most. Figure out what kind of guitar they play and buy the best you can afford. I think I said that about 4 times, but hopefully quite good advice anyway. Hero Glop, wind machine but no fog machine. Go full MTV. Well, there's no budget to these live videos whatsoever at all. I've actually got my own fan here. Let's see if I can get a fog machine happening at some point. The Maz 8 might blow up at some point throughout the course of this video if I keep playing it as loud as I am, so that will provide some smoke. Toxic smoke, but that might provide the visual aid that you're looking for. Anyway, Modern Vintage asks, do the Sir S's and T's not do the Stevie Ray Vaughan bright spanky style tone as well as Fenders, since they are meatier, as you said? Thanks. That's a good question. In all honesty, probably not. They are a bit meatier, and they don't have the same kind of open, zingy top end as a Fender does. That's great for some things. For other styles, if you're looking for a more classic sounding instrument, which if you quoted Stevie Ray Vaughan, you probably are, the Sir Classic Antique guitars do get pretty close, because those are nitro finished. I played a couple of those today on the shipment that came in yesterday, and they were a bit more open, a bit more zingy, but if I was to try and play like Stevie Ray and try and sound like that, a Sir wouldn't be my first choice. I'd be looking more at a Fender or an Exotic, if you want something a little bit boutique and alternative. These sound amazing, but they don't have the same top end characteristic. No, you're right, they do sound meatier, and that is the compromise that you pay. If you want something that sounds a bit more full, you lose a bit top end naturally. Not that I can't do it, but it's not the best choice, as you ask. Okay, Spencer Scanlon. I'm going to keep asking the same question each week. Well, forgive me if I've missed your question before. Let me see what it is, because I don't recall seeing this before, but I'm going to answer it today. What's the master volume on a Mesa Boogie like the Mini Rectifier like? Good enough to make it a usable bedroom amp? Well, if you're looking at the mini amps, like the Mini Rectifier, because you've got the combined power switch, where you can drop it from 25 to 10 watts, you can get some really, really good low volume tones out of that. Again, bedroom tones is kind of difficult to quantify because some people play quite loud in their bedrooms. Some people have to play quieter than the noise of their strings, so it's all relative. It is a valve amplifier. You're never going to get whisper quiet tones that sound really great, but it can do very moderate volumes very nicely. Mesa Boogies have always had good master volume controls because the tone is in the preamp. Really, the tone comes from the preamp section. The power section is generally on most of their amps just to make it louder. So you probably get quite good results. However, if you're looking to go really, really quiet, I would recommend just stepping away from the valve game entirely. There's so many great alternatives like the Boss Katana that will give you tube-like tone at genuinely low volumes. So hopefully that answers your question anyway, but the Mini Rectifier is a great, great sounding amp. Naturally, the more you turn it up, the better it sounds. So that's my opinion on that. Alright, quality and craftsmanship wise, are Sir S's and T's closer to a Fender team-built custom shop or a master-built? That's quite a good question. Very different beasts. I think that if you were to compare the feel of the neck on this guitar, for example, it's so precise and it's so well worn in, and the fret edges are so smooth. And because it's roasted maple satin, it feels like it's part of your hand. And the only other Fenders that I've really felt that on are the Masterbuilt guitars. That's not to say that team-built guitars from Fender are any worse than what these guitars are. But in terms of the feel and that kind of worn-in, you know, tailored to you kind of a feeling, Masterbuilt guitars have that absolutely to a T, and Suhr guitars do as well. From the tones, they're very different kind of guitars, so it's difficult to compare them. I think the best way is to compare the feel, and as I say, Suhrs are right up there with the quality and craftsmanship from Masterbuilt guitars, in my opinion, but these are very much more modern feeling. Fenders generally, whether they're team-built or Masterbuilt, will feel more vintage and more worn in, so just bear that in mind. But the quality is second to none on Fender's guitars, even more so on Suhr, I think. So, you know, I put them up there with Masterbuilt guitars. Hopefully that answers your question. The Suhr headstock, I hate it, says Hero Glop. I'm sorry to hear that. I really like it. I know it is quite a divisive thing. I think it looks great. I mean, I think it really changes the look of this style of guitar, so it no longer appears to be just a standard, you know, Telecaster or Strat style guitar. It's got its own thing going on. I like it, but I get that it's not to everyone's taste. Right. Can you get decently close to amp in a box pedals with a good EQ and boost / overdrive, asks the Fonz 147. So, okay, so if you take the recent theme of video that we had where we did a Marshall in the box overdrive comparison video, as you rightly point out, those are really just overdrives with very specific EQ curves that make them sound and respond like a Marshall style amp. So in that regard, you can get quite close, but what's missing is, you know, you can get the EQ curve kind of the same, but part of the magic of some of those Marshall in a box or amp in a box style overdrive pedals is something that you can't get from EQ, which is the way that they sort of sag and the way the dynamics sit. So, you know, you could get pretty close to most amp style sounds, I think, with a full tone OCD and an EQ pedal, as you point out. But what you miss, and I'll demonstrate it with this Maz, what you miss is this. What I was trying to put across there is you miss that sort of tubeness, that valveness, and unless your amp is really loud and you're just using those pedals to colour it, the amp in a box thing, I think the reason some of those pedals sound so good is because they capture that, which is basically a natural phenomenon, which is voltage spiking and sagging. So yeah, you can get close to the sound. The feel is another story though, and that's why those amp in a box pedals are so unique, and that's why there's so many of them, because they all do that in a different way. So hopefully that kind of makes a bit of sense. Yeah, but you can get close. You can get decently close, as you ask, but it's not the same. Right, okay, another question. Suhr or Schecter USA Custom Shop, what do you prefer and why? Now that's a very good question, because I think actually when we've done the kind of S-style or T-style shootouts in the past, more so with the S-styles, the Suhrs and the Schecters have kind of sat the closest to one another, I think. The Schecters often surprise a lot of people because they sound so classic, they sound so warm and vintage. I mean, you ask what do I prefer and why? I'm way more familiar with the feel of Suhr guitars. I love the feel of them. I talked about that before. Schecter stuff is amazing and it sounds great. It sounds really warm, but I think personally I prefer the feel of these guitars, and that naturally makes you play more comfortably. So therefore I also prefer the sounds I'm able to get out of a Suhr because I know the instrument better. Scientifically though, side by side, I'd have a harder time choosing. I haven't played anywhere near as many Schecter custom guitars as I have Suhrs, so that's probably a part of it too, but yeah, I've got to give it to Suhr on that one, but Schecters are no slouch whatsoever. Alright, I'll do a couple more questions, and then I'm going to move on to another guitar. But I will make sure I get through all your questions as we go. Right, Jamie Neese says, hello from Los Angeles. Hello. Without putting you on the spot, what's your favourite boutique combo tube amp? Love to hear your opinion with your experience. Cheers. Okay. Well, I'll put that into a couple of categories because it's hard to get down one amp. Utility-wise, if I'm going to sit and do a video like this, for example, I love plugging into a Maz combo. Dr. Z Maz, probably the 18. I mean, the 8 sounds great today, but I like the extra headroom you get out of an 18. The Maz is brilliant because it can pretty much do anything, and I love the idea that, I love the idea of utility combo amps, and the Mesa Boogie Fillmore, which I've recently got myself, is another example of that, where I love the idea of you can just plug into an amp and get all the tones you need straight out of it. So that's one category. So I'd have to give it to the Maz for that particular question. However, there's magic to very specific combo amps. I think, let me just reread your question. Okay, you mentioned boutique, so ooh, that's a good question, because I was gonna say that a Fender Princeton is probably the best combo amp around, just for sitting and plugging into it. Not necessarily for getting a lot of utility out of it, but just for plugging in, turning that reverb up and drifting away. And I've said in previous videos that I think if you plug any guitar into a Princeton and turn it up loud and use the volume on the guitar, then you really hear what that guitar has got to offer. So a Princeton is another strong contender. And if you're looking at boutique options, you've got stuff like the Morgan JS12, Tone King, what's it called? Imperial. It is a deluxe reverb basically, but same kind of thing. Box AC30 as well. I mean, some of the best amps of all time have been little combos, so it's very difficult to pin down. I thought that would be an easy question, but you were right, you put me right on the spot. I've got to give it to the Maz, because it does everything. It can do Fendery reverb, it can do driven Marshall tones. Dr. Z Maz, there you are. For today anyway. The answer would change if you asked me tomorrow. Alright, Black GSD54. Jack, do you like TV Jones pickups in Telecasters? I do. I played one a few weeks ago on here, and remember talking about how it transforms the guitar. It's still got that telliness, but it gives it more of a kind of Gretsch, chimey top end, and sort of a thicker low end as well, which I really like. So I do like them. My first choice there is just the good old Tele style single coils, but they are very good. TV Jones are great. Pramesh Gurung asks, how is the neck on this guitar compared to a Slim C Fender? I think it's a little flatter and a little wider. That's what Suhr tends to do very well. And the frets certainly make it feel that way as well. So this feels a lot more playable, a lot more speedy than a Fender. You can really just kind of burn up a fretboard on a Suhr quite easily. Fender's a bit more of a push. Alright, I'm going to leave the questions there for a minute. I've talked enough about this guitar. Actually, let me just talk about the pedals that are on the floor, because I didn't talk about that earlier. So, you were hearing some pretty nasty gain throughout the course of this video. Let me just remind you what the amp sounds like one more time, then I'm going to turn on the gain pedal and I'll tell you what it is afterwards, and you'll hear just how much it adds. Here we go. Pretty wicked sounding pedal. Very dynamic as well, is what I wanted to point out. You know, I made a point of turning down the guitar volume, and it basically sounds like the amp does when I don't have the pedal on. And that's for me anyway, the golden standard for overdrive pedals. So, enough teasing. What it is the Keeley Germanium Super Fat Mod, which I believe is basically his take on a Boss Blues driver with many of the mods that he's implemented over the years, Robert Keeley. And this pedal, if you check the homepage of the Peach Guitars website, it's currently available on a deal, which I was very surprised to see when I was hunting around for some pedals to use today. Just happened to see that on the website, and it's a good price for what this pedal is. You know, boutique, germanium loaded as well, which germanium is a bit of a buzzword that a lot of people take to mean better, which isn't always the case. But with this, you know, it really aids with the volume control cleanup. The germanium preamps or whatever, you know, germanium diodes that are in this pedal, compared to a regular blues driver or the regular Keeley Super Fat Mod. Same thing with my real beloved OCD germanium over the regular one. They sound quite similar. The germanium isn't better for everything, but it really aids with the guitar volume cleanup, which is why I like it. And it sounds a little softer on the edges as well. So check out the homepage of the website. Check out the Germanium Super Fat Mod. It sounds wicked with the Maz and with a T-style guitar. Okay, and the level is at about 9 o'clock. It's ridiculously loud, this pedal. So there you go. That's the overdrive, and as I teased earlier, there was some chorusy, wobbly stuff. That's coming from a Way Huge Echopus delay, which sounds thusly. I love this pedal. It's basically the Echopus, for anyone who doesn't know. It's kind of like the Carbon copy, but just with a few more parameters that you can control. So the modulation controls are on the top of the pedal. You've also got a tone control, which is really useful. So if you like the tone of a Carbon copy, but you want a bit more control, the Echopus from Way Huge is really good. And it has this really nice sort of subtle sheen of modulation, which is what somebody picked up on earlier. Really good. Okay, those are the pedals on the floor. Let's move on to guitar number 2, and then I'm going to zip through some more of your questions. Right, here we go. Now, interestingly, I'm going to stick with the kind of T-style guitar theme, but it's not T-style guitar, explicitly. You might be able to tell what this is from the back. So it's the pop. cool guitar that came in this week. I think it came in on Monday. From our friends at Music Man. This is a BFR, which is always exciting to see because you never know what you're going to get with a BFR. It's basically Ernie Ball's top level of the custom shop that they reserve for their artists. So this is a very limited edition guitar. I don't remember how many of them there are, but this is the latest incarnation of the James Valentine signature model, which has grown to become one of Music Man's most loved guitars because of how versatile it is. This particular one, with the block inlays and the neck binding and the amazing herringbone stripe on the back of the neck, it's basically like the best Tele custom that never was. But it's got a neck humbucker and some really cool electronic options. So if you wondered what I was poking at here, the tone control acts as a coil split for the neck humbucker, and the volume control has a push-push as well, which adds in a preamp boost, and it's a blooming big preamp boost. Let me show you what it does. So if you're playing rhythm and you need to step up for a solo, no need to move to the pedal board, you got it covered on the guitar. Listen to how much, I mean, it's not going to translate through a phone, but listen to this. So I'll play first without, and then I'll kick on this boost, or push on this boost rather. Such a cool feature. I don't know why more guitars don't have that. I mean, granted, you know, it means that you could have a battery in the guitar, but to have a preamp on board that boosts your signal like that when you need it, whenever you need it, you know, the Luke model, the L3 has that as well. I love it so much. And this guitar has a really nice Music Man style trem as well, or bridge, you know, trem bridge. What am I saying? Vibrato bridge. That's what I meant to say. And I love that you can kind of, I think it was designed this way, I'm not quoting James Valentine directly, but I think this guitar was kind of designed to be a bit of a hybrid of a Tele and a 335. So this neck humbucker gets some really nice warm 335-esque sounds. As well as if you go to the bridge, it kind of gives you some Tele-ish sort of thing. But it's a pretty loud guitar. Dynamically, there's a lot of level that comes off this, thanks to that preamp, I guess, and the fact that you've got that boost as well. It's just an amazing, really cool, really practical, really useful guitar. I used to have an L3, which is the Steve Lukather model. I don't know why I ever sold that guitar. Yeah, we've all been there. I know we have. Don't know why I ever sold that. I used it all the time. It was a great guitar and it had that preamp thing. It was so usable. Never mind, eh? There's always another guitar to be had, and there's always a guitar to be sold, unfortunately. Right, that's the guitar. Let me get through a few more questions, and then I want to do something. I had an idea earlier that I'll put to you after I've answered a couple of questions. Right, let me make sure I've not missed anything. Wow, quite a lot of questions here. Okay, I'm going to do my best to get through. Ooh. What guitar do you think a 1964 335 reissue would complement? Well, first of all, congratulations on owning that guitar. I fully endorse your decision. 335s are so versatile. It's actually hard to think of another guitar that you would need. I guess a Strat, you know, it can't do what a Strat does. So, if you like the voicing of a 64, you probably like a little bit more mid-range in the tone. So I would say maybe a 59 reissue Strat, or a late 50s reissue Strat, because those have a beautiful mid-range to them. Probably with a rosewood board. Check out the Peach Guitars website, because there are a few. Some behind me, in fact. I mean, they've all got locks on, but yeah, 59 Strat I think would go very well with a 335. Can't go wrong there, my friend. Hero Glop says, what do you think is the most similar affordable pedal to the Hudson Broadcast? From what I hear, it's a pedal in its own category. It is an interesting pedal there because it's germanium based. It's kind of a fuzz, but not a fuzz. It's a really cool sounding pedal, the Hudson Broadcast. It adds some warmth to your tone that only germanium will bring. So, I honestly don't think there's anything that sounds like that for less money than that costs. However, you can get a similar kind of response, as in what the germanium in that pedal does, from the Germanium Super Fat mod, and it fits your budget that you just mentioned, so check out the Peach Guitars website. Check out the Keeley Germanium Super Fat mod, because it's a fat sounding overdrive that can get fuzzy if you turn it up. It's very fat sounding, and it's very dynamic. So it's all things that the Hudson Broadcasts do very well, and this pedal does all those things as well. It doesn't sound the same, but it's similar. So there you go, check out the website. That was convenient, but true. Rob Brady says, do you ever experiment with different picks, size, shape, material, or do you stick with one type? I actually do, and it's the one thing I change the most, is the type of pick I use. I'm pretty settled at the moment on these Dunlop Flex 73mm. I like thinner picks, generally. I was playing 88s for a long time. I used to play Jazz 3s quite a lot as well, but I found that 73s are the best balance of all things. They give you enough thwack and sort of give for rhythmic stuff, so if you're playing funky rhythm, some people like a thicker pick for that, but I like a thinner pick because it has more bounce off the strings. They also sound great with acoustic, and I like that when you dig in, if you've got a thick sound, a thinner pick will help you cut through a little bit more because there's not as much signal hitting the guitar. So I guess you can kind of equate it to like using a slightly lower output pickup if you use a thinner pick, because there's not as much attack, there's not as much signal. So if I've got a high gain sound, the pick really cuts through if it's a bit thinner. That's what I like them for anyway. Let me demonstrate. I think some of that's down to the pick. So I like 73s. You know, there's so many different types of picks, so experiment. But I would say try a thinner pick, maybe, if you don't usually use one, because there's a lot of tonal benefit to be had from this. Yes, thick picks sound really good as well, but try a thin one. That's what I like. Gavin Penny, aloha from Maui. You get around, sir. Greetings to Maui, and definitely better weather than where you were last week. Congratulations. Okay. Modern Vintage. Can you briefly describe the feel and tonal difference between Two Rock Bloomfield and TS1 for gain and overdrive? Personal favourite of the two. Well, two questions. Do you see any reason to get cheaper amps once at that level? Alright, the Bloomfield and the TS1 are probably the most similar because they both have overdrive circuits. The TS1 is basically Two Rock's Dumble Overdrive Special with a few tweaks. And for that reason alone, it's one of my favourite amps. I can't wait to try the new version 2, which should be with us hopefully quite soon, because I love the sound of what they've revised in that amp. That amp has way more mid-range, and it's more, you know, if you imagine Robin Ford's 90s kind of tone, it sounds like that. It's a little bit more congested and a bit more nasal, whereas the Bloomfield is more open. And the clean tone, I think, is probably more appealing to more people because it has that classic Two Rock clean tone. The overdrive channel is kind of like you put a pedal, a really good high headroom pedal, on the clean sound, whereas the TS1 is like a totally different distortion, overdrive sound when you kick that on. They are quite similar though. I personally think the Two Rock Bloomfield is going to appeal to more people. I personally prefer the TS1 because it's unique and nothing else sounds like that. And it's so big sounding, it's so enormous. A little while ago I used the TS1 for some listing videos, some Fender custom shop listings, and it sounded so good. Yeah, can't wait to hear those new TS1s when they come out. And your second question, do you see any reason to get cheaper amps once you're at that level? I don't think the price is what makes them so good, but it's just the sheer efficiency of the circuit, how much headroom is in it, how much power it handles, how clean the signal path is, you know. And Dr. Z amps do come close. They don't make anything that's similar. They don't really make any 100-watt Fender voiced with switchable overdrive and reverb on board style amps, but they make equally well-made amps, I think, and they're considerably less expensive than Two Rock. But if that's the sound you like, they are second to none. There's a reason they cost what they cost. It's because no one else makes stuff like that as well as they make it. So once you're at that level, you know, obviously there's other amps that, like Dr. Z, if you want more of a Brit style amp, they'll cater to that. But if you want big, loud, Fendery, warm, clean, or a nice Dumbly style overdrive, Two Rock's the king. It just is. So, you know, yes and no, really. Anyway, do any of the Surtees really come close to that classic or old school Fender Tele tone? I'm hesitant to say no, because they do sound like Telecasters in certain respects, but they sound like their own thing, and that's the whole point of them. You know, I'm always hesitant to compare guitars. That's the beauty of a Suhr, is that they've taken that initial design and run with it and pushed it in a new direction, and actually addressed a lot of concerns that a lot of people have about T-style guitars, which is that they're too bright. So, you know, it's one way or the other. If you want the modern refinements and to have it sound a bit smoother and a bit more meaty, then Suhrs do that very well. But the alternative is, you know, just get a Fender if you want to sound like a Fender, I have to say. Blimey, there's a lot of questions coming in. I'm going to zip through a couple more, then I've got an idea that I want to squeeze in at the end. Do you believe the notion that vintage guitars sometimes have a tonal quality that can't be replicated in a modern creation? I'm afraid to say I do, and the reason I say that is before I bought my 64 reissue 335 recently, a few months ago I went and tried an original 64 that had a few modifications to it, and it was an amazing guitar, and they were very similar, but there's a woodiness that's missing. Now, I personally prefer modern guitars because you know exactly what you're going to get. You know the backstory, and you know everything that guitar's been through from its origin. You can trace it back very easily, and what you see is what you get, and that guitar is only going to improve. But when you play an old guitar, once again, I'm always hesitant to compare, but since, you know, modern reissues are specifically referring to those old guitars, I think there's something in them. Not all of them, but certain vintage guitars I've played have a quality It's not always a good thing, but they do have a quality. It's old wood, and it's dried out naturally, not artificially as well. It's dried out over the course of 40, 50, 60 years. The pickups as well, the magnets have weakened. I'm trying to think of a clever analogy, but I really can't. There is just something different about them, but it's not always better. Personally, I would prefer to buy a new guitar that captures the essence of what those old guitars have, but maybe offers some more modern improvements at the same time. So, yeah, to answer your question, yes, there is a difference, but it's not always desirable. Right. Is there any chance you could do a demo of the Yamaha SA2200 at some point? I think there might be some videos of those coming on the channel quite soon, so stay tuned for that. I do believe I've demoed those quite recently, so keep an eye out, they should be coming up soon. Right, I'm going to have to skim through a few questions here, I'm afraid, guys, because I don't want to miss anything, and I've got an idea. Right, what I want to do, I'm going to do this quickly before the video ends. I want you to, if you're watching this video on a computer, open a new tab. I get asked to play a lot of different guitars in these videos, which obviously isn't always practical, but I thought, as I'm in the Fender Custom Shop room, if you go to Peach Guitar's website, the first person in the comments to suggest a particular custom shop telly that they want to hear demoed, I'll do that now. So get in there quick, because I'll only do the first one that gets put in the live chat. So yeah, so get on there, be very specific about which one, and as long as it's in this room, I'll do a quick playthrough of a particular custom shop telly if you want to hear a specific guitar. Okay, in the meantime, I'll do a couple of more questions. Let me see. Herbert Rock says, what do you think of the Mesa Boogie Mark V 90 combo? I haven't actually played the combo. I've played the head. Mesa Boogie combos always sound really good. I actually think sometimes they sound better because they have that unique mid-range quality that their whole Boogie ethos is designed around, because they originated from the Carlos Santana small modified Princeton. I think the voicing of Boogie amps often works better in a combo. But I haven't played that specific one, I'm afraid. But the regular Mark V, the head that I've played, is an incredible amp. Really, really good. So the combo, I'm sure, is great if you want those classic Mark style tones. Right. What is your favourite reverb solution for a Two-Rock TS1 or amp of that level without reverb? That's a good question. The new TS1 has the Eli buffered tube effects loop built in. So when we see the new TS1s, they will have rectified that problem. You can just put a reverb in the effects loop. I've got to give it to the Strymon Flint. I think it's the best sounding reverb in pedal format that you can possibly get. Though actually, discussing this with a couple of my colleagues here at the shop yesterday, veering towards plate reverbs these days. Plate reverb sounds so good, and I think particularly with a higher headroom amp like that, a good plate sound can really go a long way because it's got more fidelity, which the Flint does also have, but I'd also recommend the Cattle Inbred Talisman as a good plate reverb alternative. But yeah, the new TS1, which will be coming soon, will have that catered to your request. Right, let's see. Someone here has chimed in. Okay. I'm going to have to go with Graham MC Guitars' suggestion. Apologies to anyone else who has put suggestions in. A couple of people have said Esquire Broadcaster, but I'm not sure which exact one you want. Brent Mason or Jimmy Page Telecasters, they're not here at the moment. But Jimmy Page, do you know what? There's a Jimmy Page here, and you were first. It's right above my shoulder. So let's do that. Next time I'll give you guys more warning, and I'll squeeze a couple of these in. But let's do this. Alright, Jimmy Page Telecaster. I'm not sure, I think this is the team-built guitar. I don't think, this isn't the super expensive one of two set that there was, so Let's see what we can coax out of this. I don't actually remember playing this guitar. It's been a long time since I played one of these. See what we can get. How dare I even suggest playing that song in a guitar store? Disgusting behaviour. There we go, Jimmy Page Telecaster. This is a really nice guitar actually. I get it's, you know, in essence it's a 59 Tele, I think, maybe a 60. Clay dots though, so I guess 59. It's a cool little guitar. I mean, without the Jimmy Page association, it would just be a great 59 Tele, I guess. But you know, plays really nice, really comfortable neck on this, very smooth. And as you can tell, it sounds like an absolute rock and roll machine. Could probably do some nicer, sort of more mellow. It's interesting because you see a lot of custom shop guitars that sort of blur the lines, and you know, will introduce more modern elements to these classic designs. Sometimes, you know, bigger frets or whatever it might be, different pickups. But I actually always just like, it's really refreshing just to play a virginal reissue, if you like. You know, a guitar that is just a straight up copy, as close as they can make to an original spec, like this. I really like that. You know, it's pure, it's simple, you know what to expect, and you really get the vibe of the guitar as it was designed to be. Someone just pointed out about the clip-on tuner. Let's get rid of that, you're right. So there we go. I've just seen a question come in. I know it's not current, but Peach has one. What's a Z Monza like, in your opinion? Do you know what? I have a Monza right in front of me. Oh, okay. Video cut out there for a sec. I have a Monza right in front of me that I was going to use today, but at this current point in time, it's not working. So it needs to go into the repair shop. So I didn't get to use it today, and I've never played one before, so I can't answer your question, I'm afraid. But very timely question. Maybe next week I'll squeeze the Dr. Z Monza in. I'm sorry I can't answer that right now. So that's it for another day. Thanks guys for joining me for another live Q&A. Before I sign off, I just want to say that I appreciate all the support we get on this channel. I also appreciate all the support that you guys are offering on my own channel, which if you haven't checked it out, it will be linked in the description in a little while. It's Jack Griffiths Music, and rather excitingly, we've been talking recently about sort of offering up a little bit more of a collaboration between the two channels. So you might start to see some content here that spreads across to my channel as well. So if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to Jack Griffiths Music. I'm also on Instagram at Jack Griffiths Music. And in the future, there may be some sort of two-part video series that spread across the two channels. Whatever it might be yet, we're not sure, but it's exciting stuff. So thank thanks as always for joining me. I'll see you guys next Wednesday for another live Q&A. So get your questions together. I might play this little game again next week of, getting you to hurriedly pick out a guitar from the website. We'll see. It's been fun. Thanks for today, guys. I'll see you soon. Take care.